guys, I'm Sana with Abundance Rising Family. Welcome to my kitchen. I spend a lot of time in my kitchen. I wanted to talk with you all today about a way that I have found to keep my family healthy. Now, we have 10 children. When the kids were really little, they used to get sick a lot. I feel like if something was going around, we were guaranteed to get it. And when you have so many children in the house, it just keeps spreading and spreading. And just as one child starts to get better, the next child goes down, and sickness lasts a long time here. I became desperate to find ways to keep my family from getting ill. Every time we would get sick, it always made me feel like such a failure, and I was just failing my kids. Why can't I help them fight these things off? Now, we almost never get sick now. And a lot of that has to do with the fresh milled wheat and the raw milk that they eat. We've cleaned up our diets a lot over the years. But one tool that I keep in my tool belt is fermented garlic and honey. We make it in bulk because there's so many of us. You can easily make this in a pint jar, in a quart jar. There's no reason for an average sized family to make this much. However, for our family, I keep a lot of it on hand. I made this honey last year, and once it's been fermented properly, it lasts a very, very long time. So there's no reason for us not to make it in bulk and keep it in the pantry. In fact, I've never seen our fermented garlic and honey go bad. I really don't even know how long it will keep because it's always kept plenty long enough for us to use it up. For a smaller family, I would recommend starting with a pint jar or a quart jar, but it will last you a very long time. This couldn't be any easier to make. I'm going to go ahead and show you what we need to do to make this and to have this on hand. Fermented garlic and honey is something that I don't give the kids every day, but as soon as somebody starts to feel under the weather, Mom, I just feel achy. I'm extra tired today. I've got a headache. Anything that leads up to a sickness or could potentially become a sickness, they take 1 spoonful with a garlic clove and the rest filled with honey, and you chew it up. Now, if you ask my husband, it tastes like candy. I don't want anything to do with any kind of candy that tastes like this. I personally don't love the flavor. My husband loves the flavor. A few of my kids love it. The rest of them tolerate it. I've got 1 or 2 that would really rather not take it. Either way, it's best if we stay healthy and don't spread things through the house. So they're pretty good at doing what they need to do to consume the garlic. You're going to start with a clean jar, any size jar you want to make. I cheated. I bought already peeled garlic cloves ready to go. The best option, of course, is going to be organic. I can buy organic garlic, but then I would have to peel them all and break them all down myself to fill a half-gallon jar. I didn't have time for that this week or next week or probably anytime this year. So I went ahead and purchased the best that I could find for what I needed. If you're doing a pint-sized jar or even a quart-sized jar and you would rather use organic garlic, that would always be best. However, this does still work. We're going to fill the jar with the garlic. You need to leave some room at the top. You are not trying to fill this to the very, very top. Now, I am going to be a little bit of a stickler with the honey that you purchase. You definitely need raw, unfiltered honey for this to be the most beneficial. It's even best if you can find it local, from a local beekeeper, because that can help with your own seasonal allergies. It helps your body work with things that are specific to your area, whether it's pollens and whatnot that's in your area that could cause allergy reactions. Local raw honey is best. Now, thankfully, I just ordered my first beehive. I'm hoping to be able to do this next year with my own honey from my own yard. In the meantime, what worked best for me right now, I went to Costco. I bought raw, unfiltered honey for now, it's the best we can do, and it'll be enough. You're going to open your honey, your raw, unfiltered honey, and you're going to pour it in the jar. And you see how thick the honey is, and that it really kind of has to work its way down through the garlic. As it ferments, it will become much, much thinner. It does not stay thick like this for long. You can compare with the other honey just how fluid that is. That's what you'll be expecting out of your batch. It is important to note that you will not be filling your honey all the way to the top of the jar either. The only reason it looks so full as I'm making it is because I know that this honey is going to work its way down to the bottom. But at the end of the day, while you're making this, you do not want it to come much past the curvature of the jar, because as the honey ferments, it begins to bubble, and you do not want a sticky honey mess bubbling out of the jar onto your countertops. I'm going to put the lid on nice and tight just so that we can hopefully mix it around. This honey is pretty thick today. When I'm baking bread or even making really hot tea, anything that's going to be really, really hot for a period of time, I really don't even bother with raw, unfiltered honey, because heating it up kills all of the beneficial enzymes that are in it. But for something like this, or if I'm putting it on toast, or anything that I'm going to use honey without making it hot first, I definitely reach for the raw, unfiltered. I am so excited to get started with my own bees this year and be able to use healthy, local, raw, unfiltered honey in everything. That actually looks pretty good. I don't think I'm going to add any more honey to that, because we don't want it coming up any higher than it is. As it is, this already might be just a little too close to the top. We're going to go ahead and take a chance and let it go. And some of the garlic here in the middle is not really well coated with honey. And I know throughout the day that that will become a little more incorporated. So if I have to, I'll come back tomorrow and even add a little bit more honey to this. So we're going to leave the lid on loosely. I'm going to go ahead and loosen that back up. Put the lid on just loose. We're going to let this sit in a really obvious place in our kitchen, somewhere that you're going to see it every single day. Every day when you come into your kitchen, you're going to take the lid and you're just going to loosen it. And then you're going to put it back on all the way. Put your lid on all the way. And you're going to flip it. And you're going to do that to make sure that all of the garlic is being well incorporated into the honey. You do not want your garlic floating above the honey without being mixed in at least once a day. After you have flipped your honey over, so you burped your jar, you opened it up and you burped your jar, and then you closed your jar and you mixed it, you're just going to put your lid back on loosely and leave it sit in that obvious place on your counter. And you're going to come back and do it again tomorrow. It's okay to burp it twice a day, 3 times a day if you just happen to be thinking about it, but you don't have to. But you do have to burp it at least once a day. And it only takes about a week. Now, a lot of the things we're going to be looking for. Each day, the honey is going to get thinner. You'll start to see it becoming a lot more liquidy. You'll begin to see bubbles rising up from the top. And every time you burp your jar, you'll actually be able to smell the garlic and the honey throughout the kitchen. That's how you know that it's working and that it is fermenting. And that's all you're going to have to do. Burp it every day for about a week. You can stop burping it when you no longer see the bubbles forming up throughout the honey. So we're going to come back each day together and see how long it takes for this jar to finish the fermentation process.
All right, so here we are back at the fermenting jar of garlic and honey. As you can see, all of the garlic has floated to the top. The other thing we're looking at is that the amount of bubbles that's being created. And if you actually watch throughout the day, you'll see bubbles coming up even through the bottom to come up here. So we're going to open it and burp it. That just lets any of those extra gases out. We're going to put the lid back on. And then we're just going to make sure that all of that garlic gets submerged into the honey again. And I'm hoping you can see that even now, just a little over 24 hours into it, the honey's not nearly as thick. And it'll just continue to get runnier and runnier as the days go by. So I have burped it. You can see all the bubbles. All of those bubbles are the fermentation process. And it's going to float back up to the top. All the garlic is going to come back up to the top again. Now, as I walk by, sometimes throughout the day, I may burp it, just a little, and then flip it, just because I'm here and I'm thinking about it, and then put it back. And just walk away, and that's it. That's all there is to it every day. It has to get done at least once a day, but you're welcome to do it more if you want to. And this is only necessary for a week, maybe 2. And some people even chop up their garlic or mince it, and supposedly that speeds up the fermentation process. But we've found that it was just fine like this, and because we make it in such large amounts, slowing down the fermentation process really isn't a big deal because I've got plenty in the pantry. So we'll come back and look at it tomorrow. I didn't come on yesterday and record burping this because, well, there's not a whole lot going on and your time is valuable. I didn't really want to waste it. But I haven't touched it yet today, so I don't know if you were able to hear that or if you can see the bubbles coming up as I opened it. It's definitely still fermenting when you can see those bubbles. So we have to keep burping it every day. And remember, I talked about making sure that all of your garlic cloves get completely submerged in the honey every day. But see all those bubbles? It's definitely still fermenting. Do you see how much looser the honey has gotten? There's not much stick left there anymore. At the very beginning of this, I filled it pretty full with garlic, and the honey barely was able to make it through to the bottom. But here we are 5 days in, and look at that space. So I think today I'm going to cheat a little bit. I still have some garlic left over, and I just don't want to waste all of that honey. So I'm going to go ahead and add some more fresh garlic to this. Now this is actually my first time filling it up more with garlic, so I wonder if it will increase the fermentation. We'll experiment together. So I haven't recorded every single day, but this is day 5, and I have been coming by every day to burp it and to check on it and to make sure the garlic gets submerged. So now I've just added more garlic to the jar, and I got the new garlic submerged. Let's see where we land. There's still quite a bit of space here at the bottom, but right now I don't want to mess with it too much because can you see all of those bubbles? There's still quite a bit of fermentation going on here. And at some point that could build foam at the top and it could eventually go over, even with a lid on, and it would make a very sticky mess. So I'm going to go ahead and give this another day or two before I would consider adding any more garlic to it. So let's leave it and we'll come back tomorrow and see what's going on.
All right, it has been about 15 hours since I added more garlic to the jar. Let's burp it. There is still quite a bit of room in that jar for some more garlic. You can still see all the bubbles. It's definitely still fermenting, and it did not bubble over aggressively to make a big mess. I think there's room for a little bit more garlic in this jar. Maybe not. That's actually pretty full. I think we'll leave that alone for a bit. See all those beautiful bubbles? It's still just fermenting away.
All right, I went to go get a cow, so it's been about 2 days since I have opened this because I've been a bit distracted. Let's see. I don't recommend doing that, by the way. Oh, you see the bubbles? Definitely still fermenting. Ooh, there's a lot. Now, I really don't recommend going a couple of days without burping it. However, we're getting near the end of the fermentation process, so it's not as serious. Doing that early on, this will make a gigantic mess if you don't burp it properly. Don't be like me. So we've got it good and saturated.
Look at that clean pistol.
Still lots of bubbles. I don't know if it's from adding extra garlic, but this one's actually taking quite a while. It's fermenting quite a bit. It's beautiful. Now, I'm going to show you my old jar that we've been eating out of. See, even the color is different. And no matter how many times you open the lid, that's me opening the lid, no bubbles. It does eventually get to a place where it stops fermenting and goes completely flat. At this point, you can store it on a shelf, you can put it in the pantry, you can leave it on your counter, and you can just start eating the garlic and the honey.
All right, everybody, it is time to wrap it up with this fermented honey and garlic. Old batch, original batch, new batch. Let's take a look at what happens when I crank open this lid. You see there are still a little bit of bubbles coming up, and you could hear it when I opened it. So this is not all the way done fermenting, but I'm pretty sure by now you guys get the idea. At this point, it's not aggressively fermenting, so you can let it go a few days, even up to a week between burping it. You could store this in your pantry if you wanted to, and every time you think of it or you see it, just go on by and open it up, mix it up, and leave it be. But at this stage, this is not going to explode or overflow or make a huge giant mess the way it stands. So there's definitely still some bubbles. Again, for comparison, you'll eventually have no bubbles at all. The kids have been eating that. I didn't know the lid was off. And obviously, the longer that it sits, the darker and sweeter the garlic is going to become. Now, over time, as we eat some of these pieces of garlic, I may add more to it just because there's so much more honey than garlic. This is very, very common. This happens with every batch I've ever made. And I don't really see why you can't just add fresh garlic and allow it to keep fermenting. But at this point, I would say either leave it on your counter if you prefer, or stick it in your pantry and burp it every so often. But it would be ready to start eating it right now at this point, and it will only get better with time. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you've ever tried this before, comment and let me know what you think of the flavor. I'd love to hear from you.